Welcome to the NCLA webinar. We are doing something a little bit different this year with our webinar series. We are featuring best practices happening in different states. This is our first one of this series, so we're excited to have with us some folks that I've had the opportunity to work with over the past decade. Tammy, I think you and I have known each other even longer than that. So it's just exciting to have both of these individuals here with us and to see what's happening here in Arizona. So Arizona is my state and where I'm coming from. And we are joined today by Tammy Bonner and Jennifer Brooks, who are with the Arizona CTE Curriculum Consortium. Tammy is the director and Jennifer is the assistant director. And today we're going to talk about grassroots efforts to statewide consortia and just some of the incredible partnerships that they have created. And I have had the opportunity to be a part of this project years and years ago. So it's exciting to see how it's transformed and just how it's impacted all of our, most of our CTE programs across the state. So thanks again for being with us. And I don't want to give too much away. If you didn't get a chance to read their bios, check those out from the newsletter. But let's go ahead and get started. And if you could just share with us some background on your organization and how it has gotten to where it is today.
Wonderful. Thank you for having us, Rachel, and for inviting us to your webinar session. And we're glad to start it off and kickstart it for your series. So this is very exciting for us to be able to share with others about a grassroots effort that has worked here in the state of Arizona. And, you know, as you mentioned before, you were part of this writing project way back in 2009. It was actually started by a curriculum writing project through Pima JTED, which is a career and technical education district here in our state. And it was a visionary plan of Kurt Bertelsen, who I know many on the people on the call today know quite well. You know, he really did envision something to create CTE curriculum resources that were relevant, rigorous, and engaging for classroom CTE teachers. After that, it's just really morphed into a statewide effort. Soon after he started that project in Pima JTED, and it became so successful, others in the state learned about it, wanted to be a part of it. And there we became the Arizona CTE Curriculum Consortium. So a few years has passed, and now we are made up of 32 member districts across our state. And that encompasses both public, private, and charter school organizations. And we service over 2,000 CTE teachers across our state. So we encompass both rural, metropolitan areas, and we just really do enjoy what we do here. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow, and I am excited to see that Kurt is actually on the call with us today too. I have to say he, when I first started in CTE in Arizona, he just really transformed my practice. So Kurt, you're going to be on our webinar podcast soon, just to warn you. I'm going to be hitting you up for that. All right, and then the next question is, how do your resources support teachers in improving their student learning outcomes?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rachel. And just to go back and piggyback on what Tammy had indicated before, you know, we've come so far in where we started, and now being able to service so many teachers and support them. We are guided by our steering committee, which is designees from across the state that support our mission and vision and encourage us to continue to provide those lessons and resources that help teachers in the classroom. So our resources are divided into a few different areas. We have instructional resources that are overview documents that are a broad picture for CTE programs, things like the scope and sequence, an instructional blueprint, a framework, instructional terminology, supporting all 58 of our CTE programs. And some of this work we do in partnership with the Department of Ed here in Arizona. They have a fabulous CTE section that we work closely with, and they provide funding for us to work with teachers to build out these resources. for in alignment with our state technical skills assessment, which program completers are required to take here in Arizona. And so our teachers have these foundational documents they can use to design the curriculum and instruction that is best going to help their students find success both in the program and as they enter the workforce. From there, we also develop daily lesson plans and curricula and projects to support the instruction. So we drill down from those standards, understand from the content experts. We work with teachers, as Tammy mentioned, from across the state in a variety of programs, and really work to build out daily lesson plans that support the teacher's instruction, embedding those active participation strategies that really function to serve as quality learning experiences for students.
All right, excellent. And Tammy, I don't know if you wanted to jump in and add anything to that.
Sure. You know, over the years, we have found that what worked really well was teacher collaboration. And, you know, without our subject matter experts, we would not be able to be where we're at today. CTE teachers willing to give and share with us their knowledge and experience has really helped us to expand our resources that we provide to CTE teachers, and also with that, giving back to them professional development to help them professionally grow in their teaching careers. Because as you know, teachers joining us from industry don't necessarily come in with the pedagogy of teaching and those best practices. And so, you know, it really is a win-win for both sides.
Well, and having taught here in Arizona, I have to say I have benefited so much from that. I had never experienced so much sharing and collaboration where people were just willing to give you, oh, here, try this. It was just a phenomenal experience and just very transformative. And I think, were you going to say something else?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify for folks attending here today that, you know, Tammy and I, as you mentioned, are the director and assistant director, but we also have 2 full-time staff writers, as well as additional support and part-time editors that we work with to produce all of these resources, utilizing those content experts in the field and those current classroom teachers as well. So it's not something, obviously, it takes a village to do this, and it truly is a statewide effort and involving a lot of folks.
Absolutely. Well, and how does your organization align to the high quality CTE that is just such a priority across the nation?
That's a great question, Rachel. And you know, when those elements came out, our steering committee was very supportive of our organization, really dissecting them and trying to figure out where our resources would fit in to help support teachers with meeting those needs of the elements, the high quality elements. And so really there's 4 distinct areas that we align closely with. And one of them being standards aligned integrated curriculum, another being student assessment, prepared and effective program staff, and engaging instruction. So if I may, I'd expand a little bit on standards and aligned and integrated curriculum, where Arizona is unique in that their Department of Education has developed technical skills standards for each of their program areas. And we, again, as Jennifer mentioned, work closely with the state and help to develop our resources aligned directly with those particular standards. So we have our latest project that we work with the state on is something called Blueprints, Instructional Frameworks, Instructional Terminology, and Benchmarks, benchmark assessments. And we take those standards, really dissect them with CTE instructors within those program areas, and identify ways that teachers can deliver the standards within their curriculum, and really over their entire program area. So again, it involves the professional development that teachers need to understand what it means to teach their standards, as well as meeting the goals of our state in connecting it to the technical standards and the end of program assessment. And so I realized that Arizona is unique in that way, but with our partnership with the state, it just has worked out really well. And we've managed to create more than like 30 different blueprints and instructional frameworks, and still working on it. So each time any standards updates, we go back in with these collaborative efforts with our CTE teachers and work to develop the resources with them.
Yeah, and I'll just jump in there on some of those other elements that Tammy mentioned. You know, prepared and effective program staff. We're very fortunate to partner with a number of organizations across Arizona, including our state association, which houses a individual that serves as a premier series coordinator. And there are courses that CTE teachers can take to earn credit for the Department of Ed toward their certification here in Arizona. And so we're fortunate to work closely with those folks and the folks that deliver those courses throughout the state, including some of our larger CTEDs, which really helps to align what the resources that we have with the training that they need to be successful. And it's been a really great partnership as well. And as Tammy mentioned, engaging instruction also as element number 5 on that high quality framework, really embedding the necessary components of an effective lesson to ensure that teachers are delivering, especially teachers that come from the field that don't have the pedagogical background to, as Tammy mentioned, deliver that instruction and make that learning, you know, really take hold and support students in their future. And then of course, student assessment. As Tammy mentioned, we have benchmark assessments that we are currently developing based on the technical standards to provide teachers like a snapshot at the end of the first year of a program of where their students are engaging mastery toward success on those future assessments.
And for those of you who are attending the webinar live, please feel free to share any questions that you have as we go along in the chat, and I'll be sure to pose those to our panelists. And until then, my next question for you is, I would love for you to share with our audience more about your site, how the resources are accessed, and just some of the dynamic features that you feel are most beneficial to your users.
Yeah, and I don't know, I can share my screen if that is that okay. Let me see here.
As Jen is bringing that up, I'll just quickly share. This past year, we have created a new platform that we're using. So those that are on the call today, remember it as what was called the Wiki. We are now called the CTE Curriculum Connection. And Jennifer shared the link to our site. So you're welcome to hop on and see it there, but I see now she's pulling that up.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, so like Tammy mentioned, we are the CTE Curriculum Consortium, and one of the things that we do is provide the CTE Curriculum Connection, which is that knowledge management system that our teachers log into to access the resources that we've been talking about and to be able to collaborate. So you can see here, this is what I put in the chat is our homepage, and this is just a public facing site where there's more information about us, but our teachers go ahead and log in. And once they do that, they are brought to a homepage where we're fortunate to have the ability for them to search, which is usually what a teacher will do, is search for a topic of what they're looking for and then find the resources aligned to that. We also have the functionality that teachers can search by Arizona technical standard. So we have all of our standards in here, and I'll go to culinary because I know that that's a passion of both Rachel's and mine. So if we go ahead and search for the culinary standards, you can see all the results here. And then we're fortunate to have the ability to allow our teachers to drill down even further into the standards and measurement criteria that they are required to instruct upon. So you can see here that a teacher, let's say they want to teach on HACCP, we could go ahead and drill down, and there would be 13 results here that show specifically aligned to this resource. So that search feature is something that our teachers really enjoy. And we're able on the back end to be able to use some analytics to be able to see what our users are searching for. And really that helps to inform our work as well. So that's one great feature. If I go back to the homepage here, most of our teachers will also just go directly to their program group. And so I'm a member of all the groups, as you can well imagine. We have, like I said, over 58 here across the state that are approved CTE programs. And so a teacher, once they go into their group, and let me go back here, it's kind of a home page for them to be able to find all of the things that they're looking for. So each group looks exactly the same and has those same design, and it just has the different resources here. So you can see here that we have folders to organize their curriculum and instructional resources. We also, as mentioned before, we have a great partnership with the Arizona Department of Ed, and we have a specific space in each program area for our ADE program specialists use as a repository for when they share out information or resources that we're able to upload as well. And then we break it down into the various professional skills. There's work-based learning resources, professional skills, anything that you may need as a CTE teacher. And then our teachers, of course, go usually into the curriculum. But you can see here, there's also a teacher submitted area where users from across the state can upload and share or remix some of our lessons to make them their own and share them out with other teachers. And so not only do we have the functionality to be kind of a repository for, and as you can well imagine, especially in this past year, teachers have been sharing even more so what's working for me, here's a resource I created and things like that. So we're fortunate to have the ability to capture those as well. And then a teacher can just go right into their curriculum. And for most of the large programs, it is built out by unit and lesson. You can see here some of those instructional resources we talked about. A teacher would find their technical standards, they would find the professional standards, they would find their blueprint and framework in here, some of those big picture items. We have the scope and sequence, the task analysis, the benchmark assessment, and then it gets into all of the daily lessons and or projects that an instructor may want to incorporate based on those standards. And if we go into any one of them, I'll go down to something more exciting than safety and sanitation. So if we go into knife skills, for example, all of our resources by design from the beginning, we were always designed to be fully editable and modifiable by our instructors to serve the needs of their classroom, their community, their students. So you can see here, all of the resources are available to download, including the lesson plan, any handouts, any keys, the PowerPoint, anything like that. There is an overview that a teacher sees with with the lesson plan here that they're looking for. And then as they can as well, they can see what standards are aligned with this lesson. And you can see here, there's not only culinary standards, but professional skills standards as well. And so that just helps our instructors ensure that they're teaching to the standards and supporting student learning from that body of work. And from here, a teacher could go ahead and save that to their My Items. So they have a personal repository where they can keep track of all the resources that they find valuable and don't want to necessarily go back and look for again. And then the other thing I'll share is, let me go back to another group here. There are also some discussion forums, as was mentioned, for collaboration. And so in education professions here, you can see this is a little bit of a smaller group, but there's still some educators in here. And anytime there is a notification that goes out, this is sent via email to all of the users in this group, just to let them know, hey, a discussion's happening. If you want to jump in and follow the thread, you're welcome to do that as well. So, so a lot of great features and benefits. We also I could just go on and on, but let me just show you one more thing, a couple more things, and then I'll pause in case there are any questions. But we also organize by hubs. So as Tammy mentioned, we have member districts from across Arizona, and they all have their own space as well. And we'll go into Pima JTED here, as this is where it all began. So Pima JTED, as was mentioned, is a CTED that covers multiple districts. So not only do they have their central programs, but these are all districts within the state of Arizona that fall within the Pima JTED area and are member districts there. And so they can collaborate in this way as well, not just with program groups, but also regionally. And then last but not least, I'll just mention that we are technically a microsite of an organization called ISKME, which is a champion for open education resources. And so we have access to OER Commons through our site. And we have curated a large group of instructional resources specifically geared toward CTE teachers that they may find applicable. A lot of times engineering teachers or health science teachers will search for, something on a topic that they're looking for, and it will bring up not only our resources, but also these open education resources that are available from, well-known providers that our teachers can find and access as well. And with that, I'll pause.
What I really appreciate about the site is that, as Jen mentioned, it does bring together program teachers from across the state, whereas many of them are silos. And so in this space, they can at least connect once or twice, or at least get a feel for who might be out there that can actually help them in their search for curriculum resources.
Well, and I have not been on the site in a hot second because I haven't been doing stuff at different work, but I am just blown away by everything that it was a phenomenal site before, but you guys have added so much to it now. Wow. It just looks incredible. And I do have a question in the chat from Mike Ananis, and he says, are the AZ technical standards supported at the local school level by program advisory committees comprised of industry contractors, post-secondary people who are doing the work and using the equipment, and who can suggest to your teachers what is current or state of the art? Does the State Department of Ed plan to update the standards, and with whose help?
That is a great question. And we are not the Department of Education, but again, we do work closely with them. And I can tell you that their team of individuals that are helping to look at the standards, evaluate them, and consider modifications to them, they're just a great group. And yes, they do. They actually have industry experts that come into their collaborations to address anything new that needs to be changed or added to standards. So industry professionals are one of their biggest supporters of what the standards are. And they have used teachers in the past also to look at what equipment that they have, what needs to have changed in that area, if standards are changing, what happens there. So yes, and I have to tell you, even in this world of COVID, our Department of Education has actually this year alone changed more than 10 different program standards. So our work begins just after that, because we begin realigning and updating any of our resources. And so it is evaluated often, I would say, because I am not the state, I cannot say as to how often, but in my experience, they, especially this year, have considered modifications and made the appropriate changes. After the industry individuals evaluate and make appropriate changes, it actually goes to a commissioners association, quality commissioners, who then look at it. And that group is made up of industry professionals from across our state, as well as educator leaders and others that look at the standards and then actually vote on them to be approved. So, and I don't know if anybody is on the call from the state today, but I welcome any other information they might want to share.
I'm doing a quick peek through who's on here, and I'm not seeing anyone from the Arizona Department of Ed. All right, but I do have another question from Mike, just a clarifying question on that. He says, is the selection of program offerings in each school aligned to employment economic projections within the geographic location of the school? Great question.
That is a great question. And really that is a local decision. I can tell you from my experience with Pima JTED that they do survey different industries that are coming into the area and really try to focus on what the needs are for possible employment for future graduates of CTE programs. So I can tell you that yes, in most of Arizona is like that, where they really are evaluating what's happening and coming into our state, as well as our Department of Education. I mean, they work with WIOA, who also does projections in terms of what industries are coming into Arizona and looking at approving programs based off of that information.
Yes, every year our Department of Ed releases the program rank, which is based on, you know, wage and earnings and opportunities, as well as some other pieces of data, and aligns the programs that are approved for CTE. Fortunately, districts also have the opportunity here in Arizona to apply for a local occupational program to meet the needs of their specific communities. And so those have been approved as well. And we don't provide resources directly for local programs necessarily, but a lot of overlap can be found, for example, from nursing and health professions careers to something like physical therapy program.
Well, and Jennifer, you mentioned when you were going over the site, you were talking about how the lessons are customizable, which I remember when I was first being introduced to the consortium, and Kurt Bertelson was doing the training, and he talked about how the lessons are only perfectly designed for the person who created them, and that customization piece is so important because it really, people are able to make it their own. But that being said, how, as far as keeping, implementing the curriculum with fidelity, how important is that professional development piece?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. And that really does lead to a deeper understanding for teachers as they grow in their profession of how much to modify. You know, we see a lot of our brand new teachers taking that scope and sequence and teaching from day one to the end of the year and following it religiously, and making sure that, you know, we help to ensure they're teaching the standards by designing the curriculum like that from the ground up. Whereas those experienced teachers that see the big picture, maybe have taught for a few years, they're able to modify and adjust, maybe combine some things to meet their needs or encourage a special program. Or we see a lot of alignment to the CTSO events and resources aligned to that as well. The Premier Series, like I mentioned, has over 25 courses that are offered to CTE teachers that are everything from quality instruction, bigger picture, you know, assessment things,
classroom management.
Yeah, there's a wide variety, and we offer a number of those in-house as well as we're developing resources with teachers, but then we also absolutely encourage them to seek out those opportunities as well.
Jill, can I ask a quick question?
Oh, yes, please.
First, thank you very much to Rachel and to all presenters. This is a fantastic opportunity, and hats off to all of you and to all good presenters and for the amazing work that you're doing. I'm definitely going to dive into all the materials on links that you provided. My question related to innovation. A lot of things are happening in industry, and I was just wondering, what is the process of really bringing the most recent innovations bringing to the CTE? How the process looks like? Is it random, or there is a an innovation review board or something like that? And I apologize, I probably don't use the right vocabulary, but like, for example, just the telehealth, for example, right? So now we're all using the telehealth services, and I assume it's going to make its way to CTE and similar innovations in other industries. So my question, I guess, is there a process? And if yes, then what it looks like, and if it's not, there is no process. Are they thoughts that developing, establishing that process? And just really attached to that question also, how generally, what's the time frame looks like? How long it takes to bring a certain innovation, how it makes its way to the curriculum, into our students, into our teacher professional development? Thank you very much.
That's a great question. Thank you, Larissa, for offering that for our audience today. We mentioned before that our Department of Education does work with data to understand what industries are coming into our state in particular, as well as local districts assessing what is happening within their communities and what the needs are there. In terms of innovation, for instance, recently we had a big spike in drone technology, for instance. And so we do know that some local organizations did introduce that program as a local program for their school or their district. And now the state is bringing in industry professionals then to look at creating standards. And our organization really gets started once those standards are created. And then that's when we follow up with curriculum. Presently, those that are currently using or have that particular program have had to go out into national curriculum areas to find what might work best for their program. And so it is a slower process, I would say, considering how quickly innovative programs are approaching our world. As you mentioned telehealth, that's a big one that, somewhere along the lines we need to figure out a faster process perhaps, but that's our process for looking at what programs we consider in developing curriculum. That's not to say that those teachers cannot participate in our professional development, like our Premier Series courses. I'll make mention of a course called Instructional Best Practices. And that course in particular is really relevant to an industry professional coming into a classroom and becoming a teacher. And so if there were any course that I would recommend for any professional industry person coming into teaching, it would be that one. And that's because it again, you can have all the curriculum in the world, but until you understand what you're doing in your classroom as a classroom teacher delivering that lesson, you're only as good as what you're helping to teach yourself so you can teach others.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that too, not necessarily as related to what we do, but the work we do supports programs in their monitoring by the Department of Ed in providing some documentation and some pieces along that line. But I'll also speak to something that I would encourage you to consider, and I know this is something close to Rachel's heart as well, is educator externships and getting educators in the classroom back out into the field to really see what innovations are happening so that they can even be on the forefront. Because as we know, the standards process takes time to go through. It's often multi-years before standards are renewed. And so really supporting teachers to not only work with their advisory councils, as was mentioned before, and their local businesses, but also getting them back out into the field to see what is happening and bringing those back into the classroom. Because the standards standards are just the minimum. You know, you can always go above and beyond and build off those and provide really relevant learning experiences for students. So
Thank you.
And yes, that was an excellent question, Larissa, and a great segue into the next one, which is for someone interested in starting a movement like this, which is so innovative. Where do they even start, and what are some pieces of advice that you would give them as they're trying to get something like this off the ground in their state?
Great question. Well, you know, when the program first started, the projects first started, it really was an in-person, huge groups of teachers coming together over summers. And one of the things that was really important, whether you're working virtually with a group to do writing projects, or whether you're working together in a room, one of the best things that we did was implement training for lesson writing. You know, oftentimes we think, oh yes, we can write lessons, but our particular style of curriculum writing really does incorporate a style that is most people can't do, and so we just work hard on training for that. And then we work with other professionals to make sure that they're being edited correctly, because there's so many different details when you're sharing resources that you can easily miss. And so training is just imperative for us even today. Anyone coming on board, even as a subject matter expert, is being trained in curriculum writing.
Yeah, and in addition to what Tammy said, I would absolutely, if you're looking to start an initiative that could potentially go statewide in your community, you know, reaching out to others and really asking for their assistance, for their feedback, for their insights, it really only helps the organization improve. We are very, like we said, closely aligned with the Department of Ed. We also work closely with our association. We work with ACOVA and groups that bring together, you know, leadership of local directors that really help to guide and steer us. So having a seat at the table and inviting all of these stakeholders to the conversation, and really working to stay true to the mission and vision that is the guiding principles for something like this is really, I think, what has helped with our longevity and our growth and what continues to serve us in our responsiveness, even in this past year and all of the challenges that we've all faced.
Well, and while we are on the topic of innovation, can you share with us an innovative practice that is currently taking place in your organization that others may be able to replicate in their context in their state?
Well, something innovative. One of our partnerships that we are going to be, well, actually, we've just begun starting with is a partnership with the Center for the Future of Arizona. This organization has worked over the past 3 years, bringing into Arizona a career literacy program and resources. And as many of us on the call know that, you know, Perkins 5, now that there's funding for career literacy resources down to the 5th grade level, it's been a hot topic, and many of us have been trying to figure out how to meet the needs in that sector. So the Center for the Future of Arizona had already begun that process with Jobs for the Future, who has a curriculum that they've created for career literacy, and it is an open education resource. Through our partnership with CFA, we are now going to be hosting those resources on our site, as well as some additional Arizona career literacy resources that CFA has been able to develop. And, you know, as Jen showed you, our site is just unique in that here's another area where there will be many silos and a real need for collaboration and connection with this group of teachers. or whoever's providing the career literacy lessons to students. So we're excited to embark on this new partnership with them, and again, hope to just fill that need of career literacy resources for the state of Arizona.
And as I'm thinking about like the innovation, I believe you're part of the AZ CTE leads now, right, Tammy?
Yes, we are. So I am part of the continuum leadership component. And as Rachel mentioned, this is actually now hosted on our association's website. So it is a one-stop shop page, so to speak, of all things CTE. So from career literacy resources that you might be able to find out there to the Premier Series information. We have components on administrative series and teacher series. So those coming out of industry who are interested in becoming a teacher, it is a site that they can go to and really understand the logistics of what needs to happen for them to become a teacher. And anything that promotes CTE really anywhere. These resources can be used in any state at any level. It helps families understand what CTE is all about. And there are several partners that meet with the continuum to provide these resources to the public.
All right, and the name of this webinar is Success by Design, but I think that sometimes it's important to talk about failure as well, because sometimes we leave out the importance of sharing each other's failures and just the lessons that we learn. So I'd love for you to share a failure that you've experienced and how you would have approached it differently, or lessons that others can learn from that.
Yes, so I mentioned before, when we first started the writing project, we were able to bring in teachers into summer sessions and really look at the goals of the writing project, and we were able to accomplish quite a bit in a summer. Of course, that was just isolated to Pima JTED area, so we weren't statewide at that time. Once we went statewide, Lisa Dahl, our director at the time, tried to replicate that. And it was not something that worked very well, logistically trying to get everybody in one place. It was not the right modalities for us to carry on the goals of the consortium. So we pivoted at that point, and we hired curriculum writers. As Jennifer mentioned, we have a couple of different curriculum writers on staff, and we also have editors on staff. So we're able to work with our curriculum writers and subject matter experts to develop curriculum for each program. And rather than bringing everybody into one building at one session or over a summertime, they actually work over several months to make sure that we are creating a full curriculum for the entire program. So we work with several teachers, and they are really the connectors to building out the great curriculum that you find on our site. And additionally, through Lisa's vision at that point in time, that's when we began creating the other resources through the Department of Education to the blueprints and the frameworks and those resources and how they tie into our curriculum as well. So it was a matter of really just seeing that something was not going to work the way it had for so long, and recognizing that and making those changes happen. And Jennifer and I have continued that, and then especially for this year, really on more of a virtual platform, and still have been able to succeed with the goals of our steering committee.
Yeah, and not necessarily, and to piggyback what Tammy said, not necessarily another failure, but just with all the change in needs that we've seen this past year with CTE instruction and the need to support teachers, we made a couple of modifications. We added a banner on our a number of pages on our site with links to remote resources that were being provided. So we weren't necessarily building things out in-house just because of the need for the time frame, but we were able to link to a number of resources provided by other organizations to support CTE teachers. And we also were able to develop a crosswalk. So a teacher taking a lesson that they used to deliver in person, and how could they crosswalk that to using specific strategies and tools in an online environment to support student learning and to give them options and flexibility based on their district capabilities, based on what technologies they had available to them, based on what they found to work. And we got a lot of great feedback on something like that. That just is another tool that teachers really latched onto to support them and their instruction.
Fantastic. All right. And you may have already answered this question. So if so, we can move on. But are there any other projects that you've recently embarked upon?
Really, just the Wentworth Center for the Future of Arizona, and then just continuing the work with the State Department, because whereas at first we were only doing blueprints and instructional frameworks and instructional terminology, we've now moved into the benchmark assessments to help teachers prepare students for the end of program assessment. And that's still in the newer stages. And we anticipate the growth of that happening over the next year or so to help that success for CTE teachers as well as students.
And, I remember you mentioned earlier the end of program assessments, and there was a pilot program that we were doing for performance-based assessments. Is that something that is still being pursued? I know it's such a huge project. I was part of the pilot piece, and, it involves a lot of industry professionals and whatnot. So I'm just curious as how that's going, or if that's still something being pursued.
I really wish we could. However, logistically, what that was like, Rachel. And that was a project where we brought in industry professionals to come directly into the classroom, the CTE classroom, and do the performance-based assessments for our students. We have shared that experience and those documents and resources with local levels. But at this time, our organization is not currently managing that process. We will support them in providing some of those resources, but that's really at a local level.
Yeah, and it does require a lot of coordination and manpower and sleepless nights. So
yes, I remember those sleepless nights.
I enjoyed it so much, and the students loved it. But it was like adding an entire job onto your job as a teacher. So yeah,
and the value of it certainly is high, and maybe perhaps we might figure something out in the future, but not today.
I hear you. Well, and what do you enjoy most about your role for each of you? What do you feel is like the some of the highlights of what you do?
Well, I've always loved working with our team. We have a unique, diverse, experienced team that works really hard to provide and create these resources for our CTE teachers. I also really enjoy when I get to bring new teachers together with some other experienced teachers in our collaborative events, and just watch how they appreciate having these resources readily available for them. And then the experienced teachers sharing with them how, yes, they used them as they were way back when, and now how they are modifying them to make them unique for their program's needs. And I think just being able to listen to that and hear that experience from our users and our CTE teachers, those are stakeholders that we serve, that for me is just everything. And that's why we work so hard every day.
You know, one of the, well, first I want to hear from Jennifer, and then I'll share another piece from mine.
I think there's so much that I enjoy, and I think many of you can probably relate that. You know, I started out as a CTE teacher myself. I jumped straight to industry from industry without any background in education, and it was hard. You know, my first few years, and after 11 years in the classroom, opportunities arose, and I was able to move up to, you know, a district position, and then move up to a CTED position. And I was supporting, you know, teachers and thousands of students. But now to be able to serve at a statewide level and support everyone in Arizona and bring folks together and really make an impact, I think that I just, you know, appreciate the opportunity. And again, working with teachers and helping them be successful and finding, you know, satisfaction in their career and what they've chosen to do, I think is something we can all, you know, understand.
Well, and it's such a perfect fit for you, because I just remember when we worked together delivering the lesson plan course of professional development and the curriculum course. This was just something that you're so passionate about that I'm just like, oh, when I found out you're moving into this role, I'm like, oh, that's just perfect. And fortunate for everyone, for both of you, everyone to be able to learn and grow from the work that you're doing. And I, you know, even thinking about for a teacher to be able to, if you have an emergency come up and you have a substitute coming in, and I remember that happening as a teacher back when it was still at a different level, you know, prior to this last decade of work that's happened, but being able to download those plans, and it's something that someone can come in and follow, and having those employability lessons, which I'm sure you have expanded since then, but just really phenomenal resources for any CTE educator. All right, and then the last question I want to ask is, how has COVID-19 impacted your organization? And I saw that you had the remote resources, which was awesome, but, you know, do you have anything else you want to share about this past year and this big journey that we've all been on?
Sure. So Jen has already mentioned the crosswalk and the virtual resources banner that we have on our site. But I think that in particular, what has impacted our organization is just that having our resources available online for anyone to download and access and change what they need so that they could deliver their lessons online was very impactful. I can tell you that our steering committee continued to support the development of our curriculum the way we traditionally have, along with adding endorsements of online learning, looking at what does that mean for teachers to implement these strategies into their lesson plans. And so it really did put us on a fast track to make sure that if our teachers had to, again, go virtual solely, or even now, because I believe that our classrooms will change anyhow in what strategies they're using, we have that readily available, and they can make those changes to be able to support their classroom teaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to add on to that, a couple of things. Number one, our site has the functionality to embed directly with LTI, with learning management systems. And so teachers, once their districts create that link, can go in directly from a Canvas or a Blackboard or a Moodle dashboard and access our resources and embed them right into a course shell. And so we were able to deploy that you know, when all of this occurred. And even though we had just launched our site and we weren't quite ready to do that, but we saw the need for that. And then the other thing I'll just mention is we were able to just we had to keep functioning, and just like our teachers did, and being able to modify and adjust and switch up some things. It actually, we found some silver linings in the fact of we were able to bring teachers together remotely. We were able to have them do some asynchronous work prior to coming to some of our workshops. And we found that some of the results may have even been better than we could have found in person. And so I think the flexibility and having teachers, the willingness that they have to now, instead of having to travel to, the Phoenix area or Tucson area, to just jump on and contribute and find collaboration in that way has really helped us. And, they say pressure makes a diamond. And so we found that has been the case in a couple of instances this year for us.
Oh, that is so true. And it's exciting to see how that innovation is continuing on, that we're able to improve our processes because of everything that's happened. Well, Jennifer and Tammy, I'm sure some of the folks that are listening in either live or on demand would love to be able to connect with you. How can they reach you if they have additional questions or just want to learn more about your work?
Sure. So best way is probably just to go to our site to just see a little glimpse of who we are and our various stakeholders and some of the resources that we provide to our CTE teachers here in Arizona. And there you're also welcome to contact us. Our contact information is directly on the site, and I think we shared it with you, but if not, here it is again, just in case. And you're welcome to contact us at any time. We also have various social media platforms that we deliver announcements and information regarding what our organization is working on, and you can find links on that site as well.
Yeah, and in addition to that, although we are, mainly Arizona facing, as Tammy mentioned, we do have a number of charters and other types of organizations that we partner with. And so we do have the functionality to have member districts from other states and other regions. And that is absolutely something that we are available for as well.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks again. And thanks for our participants for being here today. If you are from another state and would like to showcase the best practices that are happening in your organization or in your state, we would love to have you on for a future webinar. So please reach out to me, info@ncla-cte.org. And thanks again, everyone. Excellent work that's happening. And it's so exciting to have you here today.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thanks.